I just want to share some thoughts with you today regarding what are the implications of denying God? What are the implications of adopting atheism, as Hamza described, or naturalism by extension, which is a bit more of a, if you like, a bit more of a hard-line version of atheism, right? Now, let me just quickly define those terms just so we're on the same page. When we talk about atheism generally, there's many definitions, but it's safe to say we can work with this definition, which is that it's to deny God or gods. However, the atheist may leave the door open for something out there. But a naturalist is a bit more hardline. A naturalist is someone who would say, well, it's all physical. There's nothing beyond the physical. It's a closed physical system and everything can be explained via physical processes, right? So there's no room for anything beyond the physical. And even if there is something out there, it has nothing to do with this physical material existence. Now, if you adopt such a view, or such an outlook on life, what implications does that have on us, on our personal lives, on more of a sort of deeper level? That's what I want to explore today. Now, you may look at me and you may think, this guy's Muslim, he's been brought up in a Muslim family, what does he know about atheism? What does he know about, the denial of God or living a life in the absence of God? Well, I too, for a long part of my life was in the position where I lived like an atheist. I lived like a naturalist. I lived like someone who couldn't care less about the existence of God. I wasn't even engaging with the question of does God exist. I wasn't interested, right? I wasn't interested. I didn't want to know. And that outlook had implications. Whatever views we adopt, whatever beliefs we hold on to, they have certain implications whether we like them or not. So if we adopt atheism and we adopt naturalism, those outlooks, I know some atheists don't like to call them worldviews, right? It's just a lack of belief, as they say. But whatever the case, whichever way you want to see it, if you adopt the view that there is no creator, there is no God, and you maintain this positive outlook, that means it has implications. Now, the implications I want to look into, the first thing I want to look into is the whole idea of purpose. Now, who here has thought about the purpose of life? That shows us how innate of a question it is to human beings, how natural this question is. Philosophers throughout history have engaged with the question of purpose. Who am I? Why am I here? What's my purpose? And what's interesting is as human beings, we live with purpose on different levels. But every waking moment of our existence is purpose-driven. So we get out of beds in the morning for a purpose. We have a breakfast for a purpose. We brush our teeth for a purpose. We leave our houses for a purpose. We dress in a certain way for a purpose. Everything's purpose-driven. The things we make and design are with a purpose. The things around us, we ascribe purpose to them. Yet when it comes to us as human beings, we somehow tend to think that we don't have any purpose. Or at least we start looking and searching. Because there is an innate sort of yearning that what is my purpose? Why am I here? Why do I exist? And that question is a very, very important and profound question, brothers and sisters and friends. And like we've seen already in this room, every single one of us is engaged with that question at some point or the other. Now I too engaged with that question. Being someone that was completely disconnected from God, couldn't care less, my life, I lived like an atheist. Right? I just lived day by day and did whatever I had to do. But at one point in my life, in my teenage years, I started to ask these questions. Who am I? Why am I here? What's it all about? What's my purpose? And I realized that the outlook, the worldview I held onto at that time didn't provide me with answers. It didn't give me answers. I couldn't find the answer. And I realized, I sort of made those logical connections that if there is no God, or even if there is and he has nothing to do with this existence, this creation, he created it without teleology, meaning without any purpose, without any significance, then there's nothing behind it. It's all one big accident. It's important to understand this. As soon as you deny God and you say there is no God, there is no creator, or you adopt a type of naturalism, a philosophical naturalism, that means that everything is a result of what? Blind, random, physical processes. It's all one big accident. That's essentially what we're saying. There is no creator, there is no cause, it's one big accident. And what does that mean? That means everything in existence, everything we see around us, including our own selves, we are all one accident, which is one big accident. It's like spilt milk. That's all it is. And if that's the case, then where is the ultimate purpose? There isn't any. Accidents don't have a purpose. There is no purpose. And I understood this. And this led me to a lot of anxiety and a lot of depression. I suffered from this for about 10 years, brothers and sisters and friends. 10 years. I dealt with these questions. I couldn't find answers. And eventually I realized I wasn't going to find the answers. Or the answer was that there isn't any ultimate purpose. There is no purpose. Now, imagine finding yourself in that position. I'm sure that some people in this room probably that have found ourselves in this position at some point in our life. Now, when you're in that position, it's a very dark place to be. The angst that you feel, the anxiety that you feel, it's painful. And I literally got to the point where I was thinking, what's the point of continuing? A conclusion that not only I came to, but many people in the past have come to too. Many philosophers have thought about this and come to the conclusion there is no point continuing. What's the point of getting up and doing everything we do when it's just all accidental? There's no purpose behind it. You know, so I thought about this, and I know, throughout history there have been some existential philosophers who have understood this reality, but then have taken a very positive outlook on this. A very sort of uplifting outlook, which is, look, there is no purpose or meaning, yet we still have to continue living with meaning and purpose, or try to find it. The absurd. That, yes, there's no meaning, but carry on living as if there's meaning, or keep searching for meaning, or just make meaning for yourself. And that's the brave thing to do. And I can appreciate that. That is a very positive way of looking at things in some respects. Because that's what you could do, or that's at least one thing you could do from that position. However, if you really think about what you're doing there, to find yourself in a place where there is no purpose, and then to say, I'm going to give myself purpose just to carry on, what you're essentially doing is you're lying to yourself. You're making things up as you go along. And that's why whenever I speak to some atheists, I say, look, there is no ultimate, and many would acknowledge this, there is no ultimate purpose, but, I have a purpose. I want to be a good human being. I want to help humanity. I want to do charity work. I want to be a doctor. I want to be an engineer, etc., etc., etc. But this is purpose you're giving yourself. That's what you're doing. This isn't this is just something you're labeling yourself with. This is what I'm here to do. And if you want to look at it in a crude way, you are actually lying to yourself. You're making things up as you go along. Now, I wasn't comfortable with that. I couldn't do that. So I thought, okay, what else do I have to go by? Why should I carry on? Then the idea came to me that, look, okay, well, at least I can carry on living knowing that life is valuable, that human life is precious. We all innately recognize this. The human life is value to human life. So maybe that's the only reason I should just carry on. But then when I engaged with the whole question of the value of human life, then it dawned upon me that, what is the value? Where is the value? Now I want you to think about it from this perspective. I'm standing in front of you, I'm a human being. I'm holding a bottle, plastic bottle of water. Now on atheism and naturalism, what is the difference between me and the bottle? What gives me more value than this plastic bottle in my hand? Right? Just think about that for a second. I know we will have some thoughts. Some people will say, well, you're being silly now. Look, you're conscious, you're sentient, you're rational, you're alive, you're living, you're breathing, you're more complex. And we'll come up with a whole host of things to passionately defend the sanctity, the value of human life. But I want to ask you the question, on atheism and naturalism, all of these ideas that we've just thrown out there, we're thinking of, conscious, rational, precious, complex, all of these things, these ideas, where did you get them from? What are they, other than just ideas? Maybe you've picked them up from society. Maybe you've come up with them yourself. But is there any intrinsic meaning behind those ideas? No. The only real difference on atheism and naturalism between me and the bottle, or me and the table, or me and the camera is that I am one type of arrangement and those things are just another type of arrangement. It's just matter in motion. That's all it is. So literally there's no value there. And again, I remember one day very clearly, I was walking down the street just thinking about these questions, and I looked through there was a butcher's, and I looked through the window, and normally in the butcher's, when you look through in the window, you see pieces of meat hanging, right? And I saw these carcasses hanging in the window, and then I caught my reflection in the window. And I looked at myself in that reflection, then I looked back at that meat, and then it struck me that there's literally no difference between me and that piece of meat in the window. I'm flesh and bone, that's flesh and bone. What's the difference? From the perspective of the worldview I held at that time. So that's what, and hopefully we can start to appreciate, that's These are some of the logical implications of atheism and naturalism if we truly follow through. But the thing is, most atheists don't want to follow through in this way. They don't want to, or they don't have time to. They haven't thought about these things. But when you really logically follow through, you will really start to realize that, hold on a second, I'm being reduced to nothing more than just a compilation of atoms and molecules. Literally. Literally. Now, if you're in this position and you logically follow through, then the next question that arises is, can we truly be happy in any meaningful way? Can we truly be happy? I couldn't at that time because these questions were pressing down on me. What's my purpose? I have no purpose. I have no value. Then what's it? How could I be happy? Right, let me give you a little thought experiment. Imagine for a second that for some reason you feel really bored and tired right now, you fall asleep. And as you fall asleep, you wake up in the next 10 minutes, but you're not in this room right now. You're on a train. And the train's traveling at 100 miles an hour down the track. You don't know where it is. You can't open the window like the brothers just opened the window. Right? You can't do anything. The windows are sealed, the doors are sealed, the train is moving. What are the natural questions that are going to come into your mind? How did I get here? Where is the train going? Who put me on this? When is it going to stop? Where is it going to stop? Etc. Now think about this. In the absence of finding answers to those questions, and when you're asking these questions, imagine your state. How do you feel? There's a sense of anxiety. There's a sense of frustration. There's an agitation. Now, in the absence of finding answers to the questions, can you truly be happy in that environment, even if you were presented with an amazing meal, and you saw the most beautiful sunset outside the window, and you heard the most amazing nasheeds playing on the speaker system? Could you be happy in that situation in any meaningful way? You may be temporarily distracted, but could you be happy in a meaningful, lasting way? And the answer is no, because these questions press down on us. And without the answers to these questions, we can't truly be happy in any meaningful sense of the way. So, on atheism and naturalism, what I'm trying to get us to understand, if you logically follow through, you can't even begin to account for those things that you understand and recognize to be true as a human being. You know, and I may be putting this in a very crude way, but these worldviews, these outlooks on life, strip you from the ability, from being able to account for those things you know to be true as a human being. It strips you from your humanity, literally. That's if you want to logically follow through with these worldviews, and I really encourage people to do this and think about this from this perspective. Now, just to conclude, I want to quickly share with you, okay, how does Islam provide the answers? Now, I know I'm not here, and the objective here isn't right now to give you rational proofs of God's existence, powerful arguments for the Quran being from God, etc., etc. We have those, but we don't need to go into that. For me, at least, from where I was, one of the greatest proofs of the Quran was in its message. Because its message provided answers for our condition. It answered the age-old philosophical questions that we had. It does, and it's still there. See, if we were to expect God to send revelation to us, we would at least expect it to hold the answers to those fundamental questions that we ask. Right? We don't know the answers. The Creator created us. He created us with a purpose. He hasn't instilled within us what our purpose is very clearly. So He must, if He's going to give us revelation, tell us what our purpose is. And the Quran does. Allah says in the Quran, وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ, that He did not create the jinn kind and the human beings for no other reason except to worship Him, to know Him and to worship Him. That's why we were created. And what's really interesting about the Quran, the entire Quran revolves around the central theme of worship. In other words, the Quran revolves around the theme of the purpose of our existence. Everything in the Quran is there to help us fulfill the purpose of our lives. And would we expect anything less from the Creator of the heavens and the earth? That's what the Quran is. It provides answers. So purpose was answered. Value. Many places in the Quran, God speaks about human life and the value of human life. One beautiful parable in Surah Al-Ma'idah, one of the first chapters of the Quran, where God speaks about Cain and Abel. Now this is a narration that's in the biblical text too. It's a very profound story. It's the story of the first murder that took place on this earth. One of the brothers kills the other out of envy. Right? And at that moment, God reveals a law which will hold for the rest of humanity till the Day of Judgment. That if you were to save an innocent life, it will be like saving the life of the whole of humankind. And if you were to take a life, it's like taking the life of the whole of humanity. That's the value of human life. And we understand these things intrinsically. There's something in our nature that recognizes these truths. But again, on atheism and naturalism, you cannot account for those things you know to be true. But when Islam comes, it speaks to the fitrah, the nature of the human being. The Quran speaks to the nature of the human being and it provides answers. Happiness. What does God say about happiness? Indeed, in the remembrance of Allah do hearts find rest. How profound is that? Remembering Allah is doing what? It's worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's an aspect of worshipping Allah. In other words, when you fulfill the purpose of your existence, your heart will find rest and peace. So we can just, and I'm just skimming the surface, but we can start to appreciate how significant and amazing the message of this book is, and how it can bring balance to the human being. So I wanted to conclude on this point, and look, just to conclude, I just want to make clear, I don't have a problem with atheists, but I have a problem with outlooks on life and worldviews and ideologies which strip the human being of their very humanity. That's a problem. That's a big problem. So hopefully I've given you guys some things to think about. Thank you guys for being patient with us and listening. May God bless you all, and I guess we open up the Q&A now.